Hi, I'm Jenifer. In today's video, I'm going to be teaching you how to make a really quick, easy book sleeve. It is highly addictive because it's so quick and simple. This project doesn't require you to have a pattern. I will be showing you 3 different sizes you can make. The measurements in this video can be used to make a small, medium, or large book sleeve. We will be making the medium size one. All of my items that are sewn by me are upcycled materials. This was a pillowcase. This was a bed sheet that I made a book sleeve with. This actually is fabric that I got from a secondhand craft store. This one was also from the secondhand craft store. It has these beautiful flowers all over. I've made this out of a sheet. I thought it was really pretty and unique, and the inside is a cotton sheet. And this was actually a Martha Stewart sheet. It's very beautiful. It has blue and yellow flowers, and then the lining is actually fabric that was untouched. It was literally almost a bolt of fabric that I got from the thrift store, untouched, uncut into of this yellow pinstripe fabric. Beautiful. I love the combo of these. If you're scared to buy fabric, go to the thrift store and get sheets. And hopefully in today's video, you can learn some tips and tricks to help you along your sewing journey. So I'm going to be telling you the dimensions you need. I'm going to teach you how to quilt your book sleeve, how to add the label here, and how to do a top stitch. So let's get started. Here's a list of all the materials and supplies that you need. Be sure to screenshot these next few slides. As you can see at the bottom, I put the rotary cutter and the cutting mat as optional because if you have scissors, you could just simply cut out your fabrics with scissors. It's not necessary, but it helps. Here are the pattern sizes of each book sleeve that you can make following along with this tutorial. Once you have decided what size book sleeve you want to make, you will be cutting out 2 pieces of main exterior fabric, 2 pieces of interior lining fabric, and 2 pieces of batting with the measurements provided on the screen. In this tutorial, we will be making the medium book sleeve, just FYI. So the measurements shown are width times length. Also, as a reminder, if you have a directional fabric, decide before cutting which way you want your pattern to go, and be sure to keep track of where the top opening of your book sleeve is. And this is just an example of what it might look like if your pattern is facing the wrong way. Now we are ready to cut. We're going to cut 2 pieces of 9x11 main pieces of fabric. This is the exterior. For my lining, I am using a yellow striped fabric, and I'm making sure the stripes are facing the right way. I want them to be vertical. And for our lining fabric, we will cut 2 9x11 pieces. With our batting, we will cut 2 8x10 pieces. You may have noticed all of our batting pieces are smaller than our lining and main fabrics, and that's to help reduce bulkiness while sewing our seams. I'm going to press all of our main fabrics and lining fabrics, and then I'm going to share a tip with you. It looks like I'm ironing my batting, but I'm not. I am steaming it to get the wrinkles out. The iron does not touch the batting. Cover the iron over the batting and hit the steam button. So I'm going to show you with another piece of really wrinkled batting. I am just placing it down and I am hitting it with the steam, and as you can see, it repuffs the batting out and reduces all of those wrinkles. And once I am done, you will see it's like a brand new piece of batting. I love this because I do secondhand shop batting as well. I'm fortunate enough to find batting in the thrift store, and sometimes the batting can be really wrinkled and it seems like it's not salvageable, but just hit it with a little bit of steam and you will have your nice wrinkle-free piece of batting. Next up, we will be doing our diamond-shaped quilting lines. We are going to need our quilting ruler, a heat erasable pen, and our main fabrics for this part. On our ruler, we will be using the 45-degree angle line. You will take your ruler and you're going to match that 45-degree angle line with the top of your fabric. And you're going to match the corner of the ruler with the corner of your fabric. And this is a 45-degree angle on your fabric, and you're going to draw a line from the corner all the way down. And we're going to draw 2-inch increments from the line you just drew. Overlap the 2-inch mark with the line that you just drew on your fabric, then draw another line. So we're going to do this all across the fabric. I'm flipping my ruler and using the back side because you can see through the back of the ruler because it's clear. And I'm matching it up to the original line we drew and drawing 2-inch increments across the other side of the fabric. Now that we drew our lines across the length of the fabric, we're going to draw our lines again across the width of the fabric. We are going to match our ruler at the top of the width and match the corner of your ruler to the corner of the fabric. And we're going to repeat the steps that we previously did, making our lines 2 inches apart along the width of the fabric. Repeat these steps for your other piece of main fabric so that both pieces of your main fabric have quilted lines. Once done, you will have your gridded lines that will act as your guide when you are quilting on your sewing machine. As you can see, these diamonds are right in the middle. These match up perfectly to the dimensions that we are using for our book sleeve, and it helps with continuity. If you make more book sleeves in the future, every book sleeve will look the same when you do it this way. You can freehand this and do a line across the center, but I just prefer to go ahead and draw it. It takes a little bit more time, but the results are amazing because they will always come out the same way. Now let's go over to our sewing machine. Before quilting our main pieces, we will be working on our liner. Place the correct sides of your lining together. We will be sewing the side, bottom, and other side of our book sleeve, leaving a 2-inch gap at the bottom and the top of our book sleeve open. So do not sew around that part, making sure to back stitch at the beginning and ends of your seams. All of our seams in this tutorial will be 1/4 inch. I personally just use the foot of my machine. I know it's a bad habit. People say it's bad, but I've always done that. When you reach the bottom corner of your book sleeve, you are going to lower your needle down into the fabric, lift your foot, rotate the fabric, lower your foot back down, and continue sewing. Once you reach your clip, you are going to remove the clip, do a back stitch and forward stitch, stopping where the clip was at. Raise both your needle and your foot up, and then scoot the fabric a little bit until I reach the other clip. Move the clip, lower the foot, back stitch, forward stitch, and continue sewing the rest of the book sleeve until we're up to the other side of the fabric. I put my needle down when I'm turning the fabric and then lower my foot and then continue sewing. I do like to back stitch my corners just to reinforce them. It's just a habit of mine. You don't have to do that, but it helps with the integrity of a corner in my personal opinion. And then we're going up along the side and we're going to back stitch and stop. We are not going to sew the top because that would be our opening. So when we take it off of our sewing machine, you see the string here. Make sure to cut that string at our bottom opening. And that is our gap that we are leaving to turn our product. Clip the corners of your liner. Flip your liner right side out and set it to the side. Now we're about to get started on our quilting of the main fabric. Grab your main fabric and your batting, and you want to place your batting in the center of the wrong side of your main fabric. Make sure it's in the center, and you have about a 1/4 perimeter along the edge of your main fabric. We're going to pin everything in place, and I like to use pins for this instead of clips because it just keeps everything in place. It doesn't have to be covered in pins. I'm using about 4 just to keep everything in place. And I'm going to repeat with our other piece of main fabric. Before we start quilting, we are going to set our sewing machine thread length to a 4 because this will be a top stitch. And I'm just going to follow along those lines without having to cut my thread with every line. The pattern that I'm using, I am going lengthwise, doing those lines first in this type of pattern without cutting my thread every time. It reduces thread waste. You see, I don't have a whole bunch of thread everywhere. It's just so much neater to do it this way. So I'm going to show you going widthwise what I mean. I'm doing a back stitch at the beginning of the quilt line. I'm going this way, and then I put my needle down, lift my foot, turn it, and I'm going to go to the next line up. That is the widthwise line. It gets a little bit confusing. Sometimes I mess up and I go and follow the wrong line. I found this technique from a YouTuber. She has a tutorial, but I learned this technique from watching her video. I will link it down below because it was truly helpful. I love this technique. It comes out really well. It doesn't pucker, and it's just so much neater. I just love her tutorial, and I love this technique. I am just going down to the next line, and you might think, oh, you're wasting thread, but think of all the thread you waste by lifting your foot up, cutting, then you have a tail and you're sewing, and then you lift your foot up, cut it, and you're having to repeat it. It's so much energy that goes into quilting, just lifting the foot, lowering the foot, lifting the foot, lowering the foot. And this technique is so much quicker, neater. I just love it. I'm going along the perimeter so I can go to the next quilt line. It's just a continuous thread. It's a continuous sew. This is my last line, and I will be back stitching, lifting my foot and taking the fabric out. As you can see, there's no puckers. It's just consistent and smooth. This is the greatest quilting can get for me. Once we quilt both of our pieces, because we use the heat erasable pen, we're just going to use the steam of our iron to remove the ink. Remember, do not iron it because we do have the batting. So I'm just blasting it with steam. I'm hovering over the piece and steaming it. And that is enough heat for the ink to disappear. You can skip this next step if you don't want to label, but if you're putting a label on your book sleeve, you want to figure out where you want to put it. I chose the bottom corner of my book sleeve. There are labels that you can sew onto the front. I want mine to hang off the seam. This label is folded down the middle, so the business name is on both sides. You will place the label on the correct side of the main fabric. The edges of the label should be matched up to the edge of your fabric, and the fold of the label should be pointed towards the center. You will sew it down to keep it in place. Place both pieces of the main fabric correct size together. Double check if you have a directional pattern that your design is not upside down. Clip the sides and the bottom together, leaving an opening at the top. Make sure your stitch length is at a 2.5. Sew with a 1/4 inch seam allowance around the sides and bottom. Do not sew the top of the book sleeve. Double check that the label was sewed on properly. Next, we're going to sew our liner and our main fabric together, but before we do that, I'm going to press my liner so it makes it easier to do a top stitch to close that 2-inch gap. Place the lining inside the main fabric with the correct sides facing each other. Line the side seams up and let the fabric of the seam allowances go in different directions. The flap or the seam allowance of the lining is going left and the main fabric seam is going to the right. This allows you to sew over both seams with less bulk, and the results are smoother. Clip around the rest of the opening. Remove the freon cover of your sewing machine so that you can sew around the top of your book sleeve. Sew completely around the top with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, making sure to backstitch at the beginning and the end. You should end exactly where you started if you kept your seam allowance consistent. Once that is finished, you are going to flip the correct side of your book sleeve inside out through the gap you left in the lining. Take your time so you don't pop a stitch. Push out your corners and trim any loose threads. Top stitch a 1/4 inch seam on the correct side of the lining where we left the gap. Snip any loose threads and place the lining into the book sleeve. There are two ways you can finish your book sleeve. You can make it solid without showing any of the lining, or you can bring the lining up a little and give it a nice contrast. Follow these steps if you want the lining to show and have a little contrast. You will fill for the seam allowance inside the book sleeve and flip it upwards. Since our seam allowances are 1/4 inch, it will be somewhat of a guide, and the fabric we pull upward will be about 1/4 of an inch. I have this pad that I got with a heat press, and it is the perfect size to place inside the book sleeve, and make sure not to apply too much heat because of the batting. If you just have an ironing board, just press around it as best as you can. Clip the top of your book sleeve so it stays in place while you're sewing. We are going to do a 1/4 of an inch top stitch seam. Also, the contrasting fabric can act as a guide as well. You can sew a line right on top of the seam of the two fabrics. Next up, if you don't want the liner to show, follow these instructions and make sure that the top inner inseam seam inside of the book sleeve is pointing downward. You are going to carefully press your book sleeve. Then you're going to do a 1/4 of an inch top stitch seam to keep it all in place. Here are both styles side by side. Comment down below which one you like better. By the end, you'll have your book sleeve. It'll look like this. And I hope that you enjoyed making this book sleeve with me today. If you have any questions, please leave them down below and I'll be sure to get back to you as soon as I can. Again, I'm Jenifer. Thank you for watching. Bye.